If you're not doing these 5 things when hiring a contractor, pay attention to this video because I'm going to save you thousands of dollars before hiring. My name is Nick Ruggieri. As you know, I'm the owner here at Pocono Pros. And recently, and quite frequently, we get a lot of people who give us horror stories because we always ask, what do you expect when working with a contractor? It leads to not finishing a job, not ever showing up. And we want to give you a little bit of detail and guidelines to help prepare you to make a good decision when hiring them. So we're going to call it the 5 things to look for. All right. So number one, which is pretty basic, I think everyone should be doing this now, is reviews. We're in 2026. Everyone should have some sort of review, testimonial pages, phone numbers if they're old school. Show what their work and what their work has been like in the past. Because if they don't do that, they're not taking a couple minutes to ask for a review so they can get more work. That's a red flag itself. We have Google now, we have Facebook, Yelp, all these different platforms that give you the sources to take a look. And I don't mean just go see, hey, they got 20, 35 stars, they're good. Read it. Are they clean? Do they do good work? Are they communicative? If they're not saying that in the comments of the reviews and they're not doing it in someone else's home, chances are they're not going to do it in yours. So please make sure you take a look at reviews. Number two, this one's big because this is something that can make or break something if something goes wrong. Insurances. I stay on my workers' comp. I stay on my general liability. I make sure everything's covered because I have guys working for me. If they fall off a ladder, I want them to get paid. I want them to recover. I don't want them to be lost out of income for 6 months. If you have family, kids, that's stressful. So we care about our team, and most importantly, we care about your home. I don't want to pay $10,000 if we mess up a door. I don't have that in my cash flow to pay that. So I pay the extra 1,000 up front to protect me from tens of thousands. And not only does that protect me, but it protects you as well. Because if they don't have insurance, how are you going to get your money back? How are you going to get this fixed without their time? And if they don't have time, they're not going to just give money to pay you back. It doesn't work like that in the contracting space. So make sure you ask for insurance. Can't stress that enough. Number 3, scope of work. This one's important. Scope of work covers you from what's getting done and what's not. If you're getting estimates looking like this, where it says bedroom, paint, and that's it, you don't know what paint they're using. You don't know if they're fixing the seams that are blown out. You don't know if they're spackling the walls. You don't know if they're priming, taking the necessary prep work to get the result you want. And you could be paying a lot of money. You could be paying a little money. But it's the concept behind it that matters. And we want to make sure that you're getting, hey, we're using Sherwin-Williams. We're going to be taping your seams. We're going to be covering, masking your floor. Because at the end of the day, that's going to protect you in the long run. You're going to feel confident knowing what the process looks like, and it's just detailed and it's professional. They're not going to come back to you and say, hey, Ms. Jones, I got to charge you $500 more because of this. Now, look, there's case scenarios where you don't see things, you remove walls, you're doing this, and you find an issue. And instead of just moving around the issue, they communicate that. They say, hey, this happens. That's okay. That's part of the space. That's part of the industry. But the problem is, when you're getting estimates with nothing on it, there's nothing protecting you from them and you paying more. Because if you don't pay them more, they're not going to do it. And if they don't do it, you're going to be paying way more in 10 years fixing that problem. So make sure you're getting good detailed estimates, really. Number 4 is processes and communication. It kind of ties into the scope of work, because if you're detailed scope, you're communicating, and you know the process. If someone's in your home, they're saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to take this down, we're going to do that, cover this, paint that, but we have to prep this first. You can paint a picture in your head of what it's going to look like. You feel confident. You're like, okay, these guys said they're going to do this. It's written in. I signed it. They signed it. you're protected. That is great. That is perfect. But there's people who don't do that and write stuff with one line, not explaining anything. So make sure they're communicating. And once you get everything, they're going to ask you most likely for a deposit. Now, look, in my company, we take 25% up front. Why we do that? It makes us feel confident that the job's not going to get canceled last minute. We know we can keep our schedule booked and we don't have to worry about any cancellations. Now, when we start the job, we take another 25%. We're showing you we're showing up. We're communicating what we're going to do. You feel confident now that we're in your home. So if it's a longer project that could take up to 2 weeks, we have cash flow that needs to come. We have guys that need to get paid on a bi-weekly basis. So that 50% covers the labor, the materials, and everything else on the front end. The other 50%, it could be a little bit more labor, materials. It could be your profit. But look, if guys are asking 50% more on deposits, be a little cautious of that. Do your research on your reviews, check their insurances, make sure it's detailed out. Because if they're collecting deposits and they haven't shown you any of this, that's a red flag, because I've heard numerous times where people lose out on their 50% on their deposit from their work because they didn't check. And then they're down a couple $1,000. You got to go to court, hire an attorney, and it's just a mess. So take the extra time, please, to do that. Look, at the end of the day, these are really important things. Now, last thing I want to do is translate these things to 3 estimates. I always recommend getting 3 estimates. It gives you a baseline. You can compare people. What am I getting for this? What am I getting for that? Do I feel comfortable with this? Going off with one guy, there's a bunch of great contractors out there. So really dive deeper. So if you're getting 3 estimates, and I'm going to make some examples here. Let's say Nick is 5K, Mike is 3K, and Joe is, I don't know, let's say 3,400. I'm being a little random here, but so look, you're going to sit down. You're going to know who you felt the most comfortable with. You're going to know how you feel and who you kind of want to go with. But look, people who, there's 2 types of people who charge a high rate. Someone who's been in the field long enough to know what they're worth and what it costs to actually do a job. There's other people who just throw a number out there and hope you bite it. Then you got the low guys. They might just, I don't want to speak for themselves, but, they might just be a low number guy. They might not have any overhead. They just want to get the job done. But there's also the other guys that they're cheap. They don't have reviews. They don't have insurance. Their scope of work was one line. They're not communicating with you at all what's going on. And they took half your money. And it can happen to any of these 3 guys. But if Nick is 5K and he's got reviews, insurance, scope of work, processes, deposits, like all that aligns, and he's reassured you and communicated with you, you can feel comfortable, because you might get more out of that than Joe, where he tells you nothing. And Mike in the middle, he might be just as great as both of them, or just as bad as all of them. It's all just feeling comfortable in who you're most confident with. But us in the contracting space, when we're pricing jobs, we know what we're worth. We know what our experience is worth. And we want to make sure that that's correlated with the price we charge, because I guarantee you, Nick will most likely have all 5 of these, and Mike might have 3 of these, and Joe might only have 1 of these. So if Joe's got reviews, but he wasn't clear, he wasn't communicating, there was no deposit, and he doesn't have insurance, saving that $1,600 now might sound great. But if Joe messes up a project and you're down 10 grand, you're going to look at that $1,600 and be like, damn, I should have paid that, because now I'm down 10K. So kind of wrap this all back. I just want to inform you guys, because a lot of people don't understand the game, don't understand the space. A lot of people have great experience, and a lot of people have been burnt. So hopefully this video is helpful to you to help you make a good decision on who to hire on your next contractor. Like this video, click subscribe, follow us on our socials, links in our bios. Appreciate the time. Thank you guys. Nick here with Pocono Pros, out.